What's good, everybody? I'm Keandre, this is Intellect, and welcome back to the channel. Now, the NBA season is right around the corner, but college basketball is still about 9 weeks away. Some teams have had their international tours and such, but not too much has changed since we talked about this class as a whole about a month ago, so it's still very early. I'm confident in a lot of these guys being notable all year, especially in the first round, but once we start getting into the second, there are just far too many candidates and a whole season ahead to feel like this is set in stone or anything like that. Now, as for the order, I went to Tankathon and decided I didn't really like it, and this was even before the Donovan Mitchell trade, so I just roughly put together an order, threw a couple things around in terms of standings, and got to somewhere I liked a little bit more. But yeah, we'll talk mostly about the lottery in the first round and then a few things in the second, so let's go ahead and get into it. So with the number 1 pick, the Utah Jazz select Victor Wembanyama, 7'5" unicorn out of France. Trading both Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, the Jazz have gone full rebuild, and their roster this season should be very bad because of it. Here they get who I consider to be one of the 2 biggest prizes of this draft in Wemby. Health willing, he's giving you elite rim protection, ridiculous perimeter defense at his size, and offensive versatility and overall upside matched by really few prospects ever. If everything goes well for the prospects, I think the tanking might get a little nasty come March, but that's a testament to his talent. Now with the second pick, the Indiana Pacers select Scoot Henderson. Scoot is pretty clearly the best guy on the board at this point, and pairing him with Tyrese Halliburton in the backcourt could lead to a real dynamic duo. Scoot was ridiculous in the G League as a 17-year-old last year, looking the part physically, athletically as a playmaker and mid-range shooter. The sky is really the limit for him, and I think if he can grow into a better three-point shooter and playing off the ball, this backcourt would eventually be one of the league's best. Indiana looks like they'll be moving off of Buddy and or Miles Turner in the near future, so I think they easily get into the top 5 mix if that happens. There's definitely some potential similarities with the Fox and Halliburton pairing, but I think they make it work. At number 3, the San Antonio Spurs draft Amin Thompson out of Overtime Elite. I like Amin's potential quite a bit at this point, and definitely in this Spurs situation. He's a 6'7" guard who is an unbelievable athlete, makes some special plays for others, and can bring it defensively. His shooting from all areas is going to need to take steps forward, and it's made his stock a little more volatile than the others in this range for me. But throwing him in this group with Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Sohan, Branham, Primo, Wesley is definitely something. I'm not sure what yet, but I like the pieces.
Die. Yeah.
The Rockets take Dariq Whitehead with the 4th pick. He's a 6'6" wing from Duke with very good potential as a shooter and perimeter creator, though we need some consistency there. He's a really solid playmaker as well, has the defensive tools. I think if we see him getting downhill a little more, working on the handle, making plays, he'll be in top 5 contention. Now, he did just have surgery on a fracture in his foot, which could very well affect his stock, but the belief is he'll be back this fall, so for the time being, I won't put too much into it. But role-wise, I really like how he could complement the likes of Jalen Green, Şengün, Jabari, and the rest of the people on this roster. The OKC Thunder takes 6'7" wing Cam Whitmore out of Villanova. Cam is another excellent athlete in this draft. I like what he brings to the table for OKC at this spot as a high energy wing with great defensive upside, finishing ability. Shooting is a big swing skill for him as well, but I do have more confidence in his mechanics than some others at the moment. I'm honestly not sure where OKC will ultimately land in that top 6-7 area. I think Shea is good enough to make them a bit better than expected, depending on how much he plays, even with no Chet. But here I think a guy like Cam works really well with this young group long term.
Girando de nuevo con Waymore que gana la línea de fondo para elevarse.
The Orlando Magic take Nick Smith Jr., a 6'4" guard out of Arkansas. He's a supreme bucket getter and playmaker who will need to continue to work defensively, and even though Orlando has a few guards already, I like what he brings, and this roster could definitely use a scoring punch like him. With the 7th pick, the Charlotte Hornets take Ausar Thompson, the 2nd Thompson twin out of Overtime Elite. Ausar brings a lot to the table as a 6'7" guard/wing, high-level athlete, very good defender. Shooting is the big swing skill for him as well, but he's a bit more willing than his twin at the moment, and I like him as a complement to LaMelo and the rest of their team. Charlotte did not have a great offseason, including likely losing their 2nd best player because he's an idiot, and that's putting it lightly, so I expect them to be back somewhere in the lotto. At number 8, the Detroit Pistons take Keontae George, guard out of Baylor. Now, they just took Jaden Ivey last year and obviously have Cade Cunningham, but I think Keontae is talented enough to make this whole thing work. He might just be the most naturally gifted prospect Scott Drew has had, and he should have a great freshman season. He's wired to score and make plays, has one of the prettiest jumpers in the class. I know he's been a mixed bag defensively. The highs are good enough despite not being a tremendous athlete. With the 9th pick, the Wizards go with Cason Wallace out of Kentucky. Wallace is a defensive menace as a 6'4 guard. He's got a well-rounded game and just does the necessary things to win. This Wizards team is once again in a very weird spot. I wouldn't be shocked if they're better than expected, but I don't think that ceiling is that high. Ultimately, Wallace is the pick here. I think he's going to contribute for a long time in the league. The 10th pick goes to the Knicks and they take Brandon Miller out of Alabama. Miller is someone I expect to get lotto consideration sometime during the year. I've actually moved him up a bit on my board. At 6'9", 6'10", with his ability to defend, create shots, hopefully expanding his game out to the three-point line more and making a bit better decisions, I think he can get there. He's got to put on some weight as well, that's more long-term, but there's a lot of tools to be intrigued by here for sure. The Sacramento Kings take 6'8" forward/wing out of Houston in Jarris Walker. Walker was a great player to watch in high school, just a tremendous athlete and versatile defender both on and off the ball, and he had a lot of creation flashes that impressed me last year. I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about him being a top 7 guy next year, but regardless, he's a very good prospect and another versatile piece to put around Sabonis and Fox.
Reliable player. Last year, due to COVID, we started the NIBC in an ad hoc.
The Blazers go with Oregon big man Kel'el Ware with the 12th pick. I've gone back and forth on his ranking throughout the offseason, but he's certainly a lotto guy for me. He's a high-level lob threat, very good athlete. I worry about some of the consistency defensively and some of the rebounding, but he's got the tools to be a threat in all areas as a modern big, including as a shooter. There's a lot of options in this area of the draft, but the Blazers go with a versatile 7-footer to grow with for the future. The Pelicans go big man here as well with Derek Lively out of Duke. This pick is from the swap with the Lakers, and the risks just get richer here. On paper, Lively is a guy you'd definitely be interested in having next to Zion long term, especially if he can really shoot it. He's a talented rim protector, solid mover, and he's a lob threat as well. Again, he's just someone that makes a lot of sense with this young Pelicans core. And with the last pick in the lottery, the Atlanta Hawks take Arthur Kaluma, sophomore wing out of Creighton. Kaluma has a lot to work with as a creator. He's got good size at about 6'8". He's a good athlete and should be a driving force for a great team. He'll likely be my top returner entering the season and have a lot of top 20 looks. Now, it was really tough to put the Hawks in the lottery, but I had to pick someone between them, Chicago, and Toronto. And here is a look back at the lottery. Now, going a little quicker through the rest of this, we've got Toronto taking Arkansas's Anthony Black with the 15th pick. They get another 6'7" guy who can pass it and defend, but also needs some work as a shooter and individual creator. It's something that they're very familiar with, and I really like Toronto as a landing spot for AB, though they'll have plenty of options to choose from. The Magic pick Grady Dick, a 6'8" wing out of Kansas. He's lights out from deep, but also has good complementary skills. It makes a lot of sense for this Magic squad that would love to keep adding plus shooters, and they get that here with the Bulls pick and without sacrificing size. The Lakers grab Baba Miller out of Florida State at 17. He's a 6'10" wing/guard, somewhere in the same vein as a guy like Ousmane Dieng last year. Regardless of if the Lakers keep this pick in the future or whatever, I like him as a top 20 guy heading into the preseason. There's a lot of intriguing pieces to his game. The Utah Jazz take G.G. Jackson at 18. He's a 6'9" forward who's a good athlete and slasher. He's got high defensive upside and started to expand his game more on the perimeter. Getting Wemby and Gigi is a great start to the rebuild for Utah. The New York Knicks get Jordan Walsh out of Arkansas at 19. He's about as solid a prospect as I think there will be next year. He's a very good defender. He can knock down shots, does a lot of complimentary things on the wing. I think he's a bit underrated right now, but will eventually get more first round buzz over the year.
Teammates, man, had a great job, Jordan, using his length. That way the mindset is If a player comes to play for you for 4 years, they get an overseas trip.
The Memphis Grizzlies go with Dylan Mitchell at 20. Mitchell is a terrific athlete at 6'7", high-level defender who makes winning plays. I'm not 100% sure where he fits in offensively yet if he doesn't make threes, but he's a very solid prospect going into the year that I'm very interested in watching with Texas. Charlotte grabs Jet Howard at 21 with Denver's pick. Jet is a guy I've talked myself into a little more recently after watching some more IMG. He's a talented big shooter and shot creator. He's a good defender, kind of reminds me of like a bigger Josh Christopher with some of the ways he moves at times. And getting Asar and Jet on the wing for the Hornets feels like a step in the right direction for them with the picks that they've been given. Brooklyn takes Leonard Miller out of the G League Ignite. He's a talented player on the wing at 6'10". He can handle it, pass it, defends at a good level. Shooting and decision making are somewhat in question, but I really like his game.
Go right through Lively right here.
The Miami Heat take Terquavion Smith, guard out of NC State. I'm excited to watch Turk play this year. He had a very good freshman season, especially as a pull-up shooter. He's a good athlete. There's still some questions about him defensively and body-wise and as a finisher, but here the Heat could potentially make him a problem and maybe the next combo guard everybody loves. CD Sissoko goes to Indiana at 24. Sissoko is another first-round pick from the Ignite, and similarly to Leonard Miller, it'll be interesting to see how they work together and with Scoot. But he's another big guard at 6'8" who can make plays and excels defensively. I definitely like this with Cleveland's pick from the LeVert trade. Nikola Jurisic goes to the Suns with the 25th pick. Jurisic is a 6'8" wing with a pretty jumper and a knack for making plays. He's definitely someone I could see rising into that top 20 range by year's end, but Phoenix gets a solid piece here on the wing, especially long term. The Clippers go with Duke's Tyrese Proctor with the 26th pick. He's a 6'4" combo guard out of Australia, wired to score and create something, and he has some solid defensive potential as well. I think this group could use a guy like Proctor in the short and long term, and I guess there will be more Proctor love once we get into the season. Utah has yet another pick and they take Gonzaga wing Julian Strawther. Strawther stepped up in year 2 in an expanded role and I expect him to keep building on it. He's a 6'7" wing who can shoot it. He's got solid defensive potential if he can be more consistent there. He's just a very textbook complimentary player, and if he takes that next step, he'll be in first round consideration. And for Utah, Wemby, Gigi, and Strawther is a pretty solid group to start with. The Warriors pick Harrison Ingram at 28. It's always interesting to pick for them because as we've seen in recent years, everybody just doesn't fit into what they do, but I like Ingram here. He's another top returner as a 6'7" big body wing who makes plays and has good feel for the game on both ends. Definitely would be interesting in the mix here with Golden State. Houston goes with 6'7" wing Chris Livingston out of Kentucky at 29. Livingston gives him another athletic wing with a ton of defensive potential. I'll be focusing on his decision making and three-point shooting, but he has the tools to play his way into first round contention for Kentucky this year.
Tyler Hansborough's numbers might not have been.
And then Indiana finishes off the first round taking Chris Murray, 6'8" forward out of Iowa. I'd be surprised if he takes a Keegan type of jump this year, but the lefty twin will certainly have more volume and has a great opportunity to get into the top 40 range at the least. Indiana completes their first round with Scoot, CD, and Chris Murray around the likes of Halliburton, Mathurin, Duarte, and Isaiah Jackson. And here's a look back at the first round. This should be one of the more interesting NBA seasons with a ton of competitive teams duking it out at the top and a few more kind of doing the opposite at the bottom. We won't know just how deep this draft is until the seasons come around, but I really like the talent pool here and I'm excited to see what happens. And briefly getting into this second round, there are plenty of players who have chances of being first round picks for many different reasons. We won't name them all, but you got guys like Eric Gaines, Ryan Rupert, Maxwell Lewis, Trayvon Brazile, and Deron Holmes. They bring a lot to the table, and you even have a guy like Amani Bates going 38 to his home state Pistons. You've also got other talented guys like JJ Starling, Julian Phillips, Mike Miles, Marcus Sasser, Tyrese Hunter in here. And even guys we didn't have in this mock, from Oscar Tshiebwe to Trace Jackson Davis, Drew Timme, Terrence Shannon, Baylor Shireman, and even others. They'll all have something to say by the end of the year. I appreciate y'all for watching this video. If you did enjoy, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new, and leave a comment down below about some of your thoughts on this draft as a whole, some guys you pick higher, lower, whatever. I'm Keandre, this is Hoop Intellect. Until next time, I'm out.
Wembanyama, ligne de fond. Oh, Victor Wembanyama, il se fait plaisir sur les skills. Eh oui!
You need to learn those things. Well, they're going to need to because they're all going to be rich young men. That's a great move right there.
When I was quarterback, I wore Ocho. The might never wear it twice in a photo. When you that great, you don't see it need the showboat. Rest in peace to Kid Calioso.